Hello and welcome. This is a pop-up Q&A about the certificate in lifelong Christian formation, which is a collaboration between lifelong learning at Virginia Theological Seminary and Forma. So I think we'll start by introducing ourselves and say what connection we have to the certificate. My name is Sarah Bentley Allred, and I serve as the coordinator of Forma Evangelism. So I am here holding some space and how Forma is participating in the certificate. Wallace, you want to jump in?
Sure. My name is Wallace Benton, and I serve as the Associate Director for Lifelong Learning. And so I'm kind of representing the lifelong learning end of this collaboration. Samantha?
I am Samantha Clare. I am a seminarian at Bexley-Seabury, and as part of my field education, I am working with Forma on developing the certificate program.
Amazing. So we're gonna share with you guys some frequently asked questions, and if other people have questions, please drop them into the chat. And we can certainly follow up later via email if you have additional questions as well. So I'm going to start, Samantha, with you and ask if you can tell us where the idea for this certificate in lifelong Christian formation came from.
Sure. In 2016, I believe, Forma offered for the first time a certificate in youth ministry, which I was a member of that first class, and found it to be a very fruitful learning experience that helped me to grow my ministry. And so there was also a leadership track, another certificate program that was a leadership track. Over time, because of COVID, those programs extended their lifespan. And so coming out of the pandemic and back into a new world, we started to dream about what a certificate in formation could look like. And that's how this idea began to develop. And we believe that formation doesn't happen in silos, that children's ministry doesn't happen separately from youth ministry, doesn't happen separately from adult ministry. And so the idea of creating a certificate for practitioners doing formation across the whole lifespan was born. And it became clear to us that we would be able to offer a program that could be tailored to different formation professionals based on their specific context and needs. We know some people do children and youth, some people do children, family, and youth, some people do youth, some people do intergenerational, and some people work with adults. And so trying to create a program that could meet the needs of formation professionals across the church in a variety of contexts became our goal.
Amazing. So Wallace, if you'll follow up on that and share, I think it's kind of clear how Forma is connected, that this is building off a certificate program that Forma had previously. So how is lifelong learning involved?
So lifelong learning, for those who don't know, is part of Virginia Theological Seminary. And we're always thinking about how we can connect different parts of the seminary, different parts of the Episcopal Church, people in general, how we can nurture and develop them, and then ultimately how we can then highlight ministries that are happening across the landscape. And so I think this really kind of comes in this focus of nurture. How can we develop learners, especially those who are practitioners who might not always have the time or the funds, the space, the just access to different ways of learning to like continue to develop their craft. And so for us, this was as soon as Forma kind of came underneath the lifelong learning umbrella, I think this was one of the first things that we were like, let's figure out how we can make this happen. Let's figure out how this can be a part of what we do. And so for us, we're really kind of bringing in some of the Virginia Theological Seminary professors to be a part of the learning process, while also hoping to continue to add like a little bit of different perspective outside of just like the Forma perspective. So we hope that, I think our big hope, lifelong learning's big hope, is that people who are about not just like learning maybe a specific, like, I want to be a better youth minister, or I want to be a better this, instead thinking about how can lifelong learning go from zero to death. How can we think about learning at this broader, taking a step back, taking a broader view of what learning can look like in our churches or in our spaces. So.
Thank you. So, Samantha, if you would speak to a little bit of the format of this year's certificate program and whether or not the residency is required.
Yeah, I would love to. We know how important it is to create programs that are accessible and affordable and that directly meet the needs of formation professionals. And so from the inception of this iteration of the certificate program, we've had in mind creating an adaptive program that can meet the needs of both full-time professionals and volunteer professionals. And so this first year during our pilot program, there is an in-person residency at Virginia Theological Seminary. It is 5 days during the work week, and we know that that is a barrier for some people to participate. It is required as part of the certificate program during this pilot year because what we do in person will lay the foundation for the work that is engaged during the rest of the certificate on the asynchronous platform. So that is our first year, our first program. Going forward, we are working to take the content that is presented during the residency and convert that into a format that can be done fully online or fully dispersed. And so, yes, this year has a barrier for people who can't find the time or resources to make it possible to fit a residency into their daily life. But I hope that you hear that we are intentionally working on creating the next iteration of the program to break those barriers. So what that looks like is we'll be recording some of what happens at the residency to create online content. So I hope you will stay engaged. If that requirement is a barrier for you, that you'll stay engaged in the and look to the next iteration of the program, which hopefully will be more accessible for those of you who need that.
Awesome. Thank you. Wallace, some folks have wondered if the program is for lay professionals or also open to clergy.
So, and I think everybody who's been part of the planning process for this would all agree that this is about people who are about formation, lifelong formation. So whether that means that you are a layperson or a clergy person, for us, it doesn't matter as long as you're about understanding more or adding an extra backbone to or skeleton to the body that is lifelong learning and lifelong Christian formation. And so as long as you're about that, that's what matters to us, whether or not you are a clergy person and have had a deep dive, at least a 3-year deep dive on theology, or whether you are a practitioner who's been practicing for 20 years. If you would like a focused year-long approach thinking about Christian formation, this might be for you. And so we would love for you to be a part of this.
So one of the most frequently asked questions that we've gotten so far is folks emailing and saying, like, I already have a master in divinity, or maybe I already did a different type of education related to Christian formation, maybe a master of arts or something else. Like, is this certificate for me? Or should I be looking at like a doctorate program or something else? Virginia Theological Seminary also has a DMin with an area specializing in Christian formation. So, Samantha, if you want to take a stab at that question first that we've been getting, and then Wallace, if you have anything to add, can jump in.
Sure. The content of the curriculum for the certificate program focuses mostly on applied skills in ministry. And so we will be looking at scripture, at theology, at pastoral care, as well as some more of the businessy side of what it means to do ministry, like marketing and communications and design, volunteer recruitment. And so if you are looking to build your skill set around applied ministry skills, then the certificate program is probably right for you. If you are interested in thinking about a specific area of ministry, doing research or developing thought around ministry, then you might be more suited for the doctoral program. But maybe Wallace has something to add to that.
I think that's exactly it. For me, it's all about like if you're about like the practice, if you're about if you're in, I think in some ways, like I said before, like even if you've been in ministry for 20 years, I will say like our focus is really geared towards people who might be earlier in their Christian formation careers and or volunteer careers, part-time careers. And if for you like a doctorate isn't part of that, but you might want something that could spur on your your personal thought process, and you feel like this might be a spur, then great, we would love to have you. But also know that if you're expecting something that's going to be equivalent to a doctorate, this is probably not going to be for you.
Wonderful. If anybody else has a specific question, you can drop that in the chat. Wallace or Samantha, are there other questions, frequently asked questions that you want to address before we give folks a place to learn more? All right.
I don't think so.
All right. So you can visit our website, www.forma.church/certificate program, to learn more and apply. And you can also send follow-up questions to my email address, and I'll share that with Wallace and Samantha. And that email is S as in Sarah.
One other thing, if I could add.
Oh, yeah. And we have one in the chat. So go ahead, Samantha.
We have two in the chat.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I have a little lag, so I thought there was a space. My comment is about sort of the confidence in our job stability and what that means for participation in the certificate program. And so as part of the application process, there is basically like a reference form from wherever you are doing ministry, whoever your supervisor would be in ministry. We know that sometimes life happens, things change. And so being confident that you will be doing ministry in the same place, in the same way for the full academic year that the program is not a requirement of the program. The requirement of the program is that you are engaged in ministry in some way where you can apply the skills that you are learning. But I just wanted to name that as a potential concern that some people might have.
I think that's really, really helpful. Thank you. And then out loud, we have a couple questions in the comments, and I want to read those and then get y'all's responses. The first one is, besides the residency, are there specific time set aside for synchronous work? I'll go to Wallace if you want to address. Okay. Sorry, y'all. We have a little lag here. Samantha, you jump in with the synchronous work question.
There's a meeting at the beginning of the program, which will be synchronous online. The other components that are synchronous are meeting with your spiritual director and mentor, which will be, you will find those as part of the program. So you don't need to come into the program with a spiritual director and mentor unless you already have one. But you will coordinate those synchronous times with the mentor and spiritual director. And then there will be opportunities for gathering synchronously throughout the duration on a sort of maybe once a month or less, so not super frequent. But the mandatory gathering times that are synchronous would be at the very beginning of the program to orient, and then along the way with your one-on-one with those mentors and spiritual directors.
Awesome. Thank you. So it really is a mix of synchronous, asynchronous, and on-site for this pilot year. Our second question is curiosity about the syllabus or the specific topics and courses that will be covered. And for those of you that are here live with us, I'll drop the list of those programs in the chat. But the general answer to that is yes, we do have a list of modules and topics that we're planning to cover, and that can be found. It's pretty lengthy, and it can be found on our website, and that's going to be the best way. But the first pieces are foundational, so like foundations of scripture, foundations of theology, and then we go into some of the business-oriented pieces that Samantha mentioned, strategic planning, structures, strategy, volunteer recruitment, and then there's other topic areas, for example, responding to trauma, tragedy, disaster, and crisis. So even in this first pilot year, we're trying to offer a diverse range of topics and modules that folks can, some of which will be required for everybody, if I'm correct, and some of which you can kind of pick and choose based on your context.
And also, like, I think there's a lot of freedom. Like, if I think there will be essentially like sections that you might have to do 2 modules in this like grouping. And so if you do your 2 modules and you're like, well, but I would actually like to do this other one, then like you'll be free to do that. We are not going to poo-poo more learning.
I love that. All right. So please visit the website and apply if this feels like a fit. We are accepting applications through May 1st and certainly happy to answer additional questions. And you can reach out to sallred@vts.edu. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you all.